Okay, calling to order at 6:46 p.m. the regular meeting of the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates for September 10th. Would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember McGowan.
Here.
Councilmember Roos.
Here.
Councilmember Kemps.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Losey.
She'll be here shortly.
And Mayor Murdoch.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, time for the mayor's report. First off, welcome. It's great to be back in chambers. We got August off, and we're sorry we're running a little bit late. We had a very full closed session discussion. Here comes our Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry.
That's fine. So I want to give you a couple of reminders. The bulky trash pickup is this Saturday, September the 14th. Get your stuff out Friday night so you don't miss those streets that are early pickup. It's always a great way to lighten your load at home. And the Peninsula Seniors Bohannon Lecture Series continues this month in September on Wednesday mornings from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. September 11th will be about identifying valuable coins and treasures. The 18th, native plants in your zip code. And September 25 is going to be revisiting Patty Hirsch. Don't know who that is, but if you attend this lecture, you'll find out. Did you know is back. Yay! Since the implementation of Prop 13, the city has consistently relied on special assessments and parcel taxes to bring additional revenue to fund city operations. During the 80s, parcel taxes partially covered the costs of police, fire, paramedic services, and parklands maintenance. In 1991 and 1996, residents approved a fire suppression district to fund 100% of the contract for LA County Fire Department. In 1996, the passage of Prop 218 outlawed the ability to use a special district to fund paramedic services, which were about 40% of the LA County Fire contract. So when that term expired in 2001, and then again in 2007, residents approved 10-year parcel taxes to cover the actual costs for fire and paramedic services. Residents did not renew that parcel tax in 2017, so we went a year without this critical extra funding. In 2018, Measure E was passed to partially fund police services for 9 years. This parcel tax expires in 2027, and Council is working on a replacement to put on a future ballot. I bring this up because historically, these assessments and parcel taxes accounted for 25 to 26% of the city's annual revenues. For this current fiscal year, Measure E will only account for 21% of our total revenues, and that's due to the lack of an escalator or an inflation adjustment which previous taxes has had. I know that's a lot of information in this short amount of time, but the point is, for the last 45 years, the city has relied on assessments and parcel taxes to fund a good chunk of our operations. And frankly, our city would not be able to function without this supplemental revenue source. With that, City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, member of the City Council. Good evening, residents. Couple updates. We've had some staffing changes since we've last seen you. Our Public Works Director left us, moved on to a new position. We are fulfilling that position with help from a consultant right now, HR Green, Steve Larissa, who's sitting at the big boy table, has been helping and stepped up. He's been our city engineer. Some of you know him for quite a bit of time. We've also brought in Derek Weisky, who's serving as the acting Public Works Director. they tag team, so Derek's not here tonight, and he's been handling some more information. At this point, we're assessing our next steps. I would also like to introduce Tamika Cook. Tamika is our brand-new city clerk, full-time permanent city clerk. I think it's been over a year. My understanding, it's been over a year since we've had a permanent city clerk, so Tamika comes to us. Most recently, she was the deputy city clerk for the city of Compton. It's about, what, your 6th day here? So, and first official council meeting, so welcome. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our community development director, Cheryl, for pinch hitting for a long time with council chambers. I think city clerk duties were spread amongst all of the staff, but the most high-profile version, this part, Cheryl did a great job. So thank you, Cheryl. You were so happy to turn this over to Tamika. The other update I wanted to share with the council and the communities, I want to talk a little about election signs. Have you seen them out there yet? Yes, you have.
No.
Okay. So a lot of questions about it. So let's be try to be as clear as we can. Okay. Election signs may not be placed on what we'll term as city or public property, medians, parkways, trails, city hall property. Cannot have an election sign. We have let all of the candidates know, and we asked residents if they, Luke, be ready, if they want to report a election sign that's in the wrong location, what we're going to do is we're going to have you call the police department at, go.
310-378-4211.
4211. The reason we're bringing it in through police is not because they're going to go out and enforce or they're going to even remove. They're not going to remove the signs, but they're going to log it. They have the dispatch center. They have the procedures to be able to do this. That log will then be turned over to our Streets and Parks Department, who will then go out and remove the signs. If you want to report a sign that was properly on your property that has been stolen, you do report that to the police department at the same number. I won't make you repeat it.
Thanks.
And they will take a report on that. There are some questions about the city easements, the first 10 feet of most of your property. It's not all of your property. That's virtually impossible to enforce. So it's been past practices in the last couple of elections. We're not going to get involved in that. If it's a safety hazard or sightline, we'll definitely take a look at it and make a request to move it back. But short of going on and actually measuring 10 feet or checking parcel maps, we're gonna let those go. So I just wanted to share that with the council and the community, and we'll be putting this out in our newsletter, in an upcoming newsletter. So there's no questions on that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Chief, do you have something you want to share?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I just wanted to give you a quick update regarding a few items. In August, the police department, especially the administrative staff, we kept very busy with recruitments. So as you know, we have a number of vacancies, so we spent a lot of time testing and interviewing for the positions of services officer, and police captain. So we've made some good progress with those recruitments. And we soon plan to open up the position for the full-time community relations officer. We've been very thankful for Marcel Herrera, who's been filling in that role in a part-time remote capacity, but we look forward to opening that recruitment soon. Last Friday, we had a Coffee with a Cop event, which I was very happy to have a wonderful turnout. It was great to be able to connect with the community and meet some new people and see some familiar faces also. Our next planned community event will be the Prepared Peninsula Expo, which will be Sunday, October 27th, and that will be, that's a joint effort. If none of you have been before, it's a joint effort with all the Peninsula cities, and it's held in the parking lot of Peninsula High School, right next to the farmer's market. So it's a fun time to go out there, and you learn a lot about preparing for emergencies, and while you're there, you get to pick up some fresh produce and things. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little rusty, and I missed the part of the agenda where we had to approve the agenda. So.
Does that mean we have to do all of it all over again?
No, that part was all, it was all okay. So let's Any discussion around the agenda? Are there any items that we might want to move to consent? I was wondering about perhaps item number, what item number is it? Dang, where'd it go? It's item number 10, if we wanted to move that to consent, just because we've got a full day today.
I'll support
Anybody
that.
interested in that?
Sure.
Item number 10 for the public's information is the acceptance of the donation of $466,000 for ALPR cameras, donation from the PALOS Verdes Estates Foundation. So I move that we move item number,
I was just going to clarify, just to be clear, that the attached agreement is not the final form, that the requested action is to approve a document substantially up form in a form approved by the city manager and the city attorney. It's just to ensure that the city is the recipient of all the benefits, not the foundation. There'll be some small additional changes that'll be needed. Just to be clear, that's the action recommended that will be approved if moved to consent and approved.
okay. So I move that we move item number 10 to the consent. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other modifications to the agenda? All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
I'm
Oppo-
recused myself on item number 10.
Okay, opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, now that we've cleaned up.
Motion was to approve the agenda with the addition.
Yes, yes. All right, now that I cleaned up my mess. Okay, we have a ceremonial presentation, and because we were late, I didn't get to meet the person that I'm doing this with, so I thought it might be you. So anyway, well, she was nodding her head. So I've as mayor, have issued a proclamation that September, for September being National Service Dog Month, canine companions provide task-trained service dogs to adults, children, and veterans with disabilities, and facility dogs to professionals working in healthcare, criminal justice, rehabilitation, and educational settings. Their dogs and all follow-up services are provided at no cost to the clients. Canine companions' puppies are specially bred, raised, and trained for their future careers, and less than 1% of people with disabilities who qualify for a service dog get a service dog. So clearly, there's an unmet need here. For those of you that love dogs, are interested in providing a service, please consider this. So the proclamation, whereas we believe in the joyful, transformative power of the human canine bond and inclusivity of all citizens, whereas in the United States, 64 million adults and children have a disability, and only 16,000 service dogs from accredited training programs exist nationwide, and the need is growing. Whereas Canine Companions is a nonprofit organization that enhances the lives of people with disabilities by providing expertly trained service dogs and ongoing support to ensure quality partnerships. Whereas Canine Companions and their service dogs empower people with disabilities to lead life with greater independence. Whereas National Service Dog Month aims to educate community about the benefits of service dogs. And whereas the city of Palos Verdes Estates continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens and their service dogs are embraced. Now, therefore, in recognition of service dogs and the adults and children with disabilities in our community, the City Council do hereby proclaim September to be National Service Dog Month. Melanie? Melaine. I was wondering if you want to come up and accept this? Very nice. She's brought her dog with her. And
Should have led with that.
do you want to introduce your dog?
Of course. This is Splash. She is a 9-month-old lab golden cross. She was bred specifically for a life of service by Canine Companions up in Santa Rosa. Oh, she loves you. I got her when she was 8 weeks old. I will turn her in, and my heart will break in February. It's the 9th puppy I've raised for them. Does not get any easier. But this community, Palos Verdes Estates, has been very instrumental in helping me and several of other of us, thank you, yes, raise these puppies. We volunteer our time, effort, energy, and money to raise them for about 18 months and then turn them into professional trainers. I appreciate this very much.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Come on. Great. Somebody out there have a camera going use mine. Can you take it? Awesome. Don't splash.
David, we're substantially better.
Yeah, you want to?
I know. I just work hands.
Well, he's still a trainer.
It's a dog you.
Go ahead and repeat that statement.
Good. CRT again.
Just check with my wife on that.
Should have warned you.
I'm just kidding.
Let me see.
All right, that's good. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For your word.
Thank you so much. Let's
Splash, you want to
hush.
stay? It's really fun.
Yeah, she really would like to stay.
You're a hero.
She might like your couch.
She would like your couch. Thank you.
Very nice.
That's a lot more fun than closed sessions.
All right, it's time for communications from the public. And let's start with Bert Walker, and then we'll follow with Sandra Winston. Bert?
Thank you. My name is Bert Walker, and I live within 300-foot radius of the new construction at 2321 Via Acalones that has already been approved for occupancy. I have a master's degree in engineering, served as an officer in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and have been involved in construction and private residences in the state of Nevada. Although plans for the construction of this new property was approved by the City Council on July 2020, the architect, owner, and contractor have, during construction, disrespected and violated rules, regulations, and resolutions upon which the City Council gave its approval. This was the same day the City Council overruled 2 years of work and recommendations of the Planning Commission and allowed construction of an oversized view-blocking home which has deprived Mrs. Sandy Winston's house of much of her treasured South Bay views. Today, Mrs. Winston will submit a detailed report to the City Council describing these violations during construction, and I hope that the City Council will take the time to finally examine these violations. Mrs. Winston, to date, feels she has been ignored. Since the house has already been built and approved for occupancy, there is little that can be done to make changes in the construction. However, many important violations can and should be addressed. Mrs. Winston is a recognized author, loved by her neighbors, and with her husband George, who is now gravely ill, have over a 50-year period paid their taxes and contributed greatly to life in PV. Referring to City Council Resolution R 2020-25 dated July 20th, 2020, quote, "On the remainder of the site, vegetation shall be restricted to no higher than adjacent approved retaining wall fence elevations." The property in question now has a 6.5-foot concrete retaining wall on the east and adjoining Mrs. Winston's property, and Mrs. Winston has an existing 5-foot wooden fence on her property line, which is adequate to provide privacy to both her home and the new home, while enabling Mrs. Winston to retain what is left of a view of the South Bay. However, in violation of the above referenced resolution, and without any notice or permission, the owner and contractor have constructed a new fence between their retaining wall and Mrs. Winston's existing fence and the new one towers over Mrs. Winston's fence and prevents her and her ailing husband to have any view of the South Bay while seated in their backyard. One of their remaining pleasures.
Sir, thank you. Your 3 minutes
In
is up.
conclusion, I request that the City Council recognize the blatant violation of their own resolution and today order that this unlawful fence be removed.
Thank you.
And in addition...
Sandra, do you want to come up next? Your time is up,
And in
sir.
addition, address all the other items in Mrs. Winston's submission. Thank you.
Before I begin, I have a copy of the resolution here for each member of the council they approved, and then the illustration by the architect, and a couple of photos of my lost view and the view with this fence.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I would like them to have that before I begin.
It's coming.
Okay?
Okay, thank you. Hello, and thank you for having us speak at this. Hello, I'm Sandra Winston. I live at 2325 Via Acalones. I'm here tonight to appeal for your help in upholding the resolution 2025 and the intent regarding height of vegetation and view impact by the adjacent retaining wall at 2321 Via Acalones. Many modifications to a previously approved development entitlement must be approved under PVE Municipal Code 1740-020 per code. If the director finds modifications is consistent with the spirit and intent of the prior entitlement, the director may grant this modification. These modifications include placement of walls and fences. The director may grant the relocation of these improvements, provided that the new location is not in the setback. The applicant applied for other modifications under this code on January 19th, 2021. In 2023, an additional fence was erected between our properties, further blocking our view in conflict with the intent of the entitlement approval. We received no notice of this approval as required. We contacted the director and was told it was approved under Code 1832-0.0. This code does not pertain to previous entitlements. I've written the city asking why the correct process for approval was not followed and have had no response. We're being ignored. We met with Elaine Jang, and after she met with the city attorney, I was told that the resolution would be upheld. As we were never informed regarding the fence, we were denied our right to appeal. The applicant planted vegetation that consistently grows taller than allowed per their entitlement. The maximum height of the approved retaining wall. It is clear the intent of the entitlement was to have no additional obstructions on our ocean and coastline view. Councilmember Kemps discussed the Winston side with vegetation not to exceed the height of the retaining wall. He wanted assurance that our views would not be further obstructed. The architect stated that the combination of planter walls and guardrails will not impede the neighborhood views any further than those of the existing fence in the neighbor's property. We ask that you please address these issues. When I previously spoke to the city council, we were told a city council member would contact us. This never happened. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I hope you will consider my appeal to you.
Thank you. John Cradell?
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, City Council, City staff, and residents. My name is John Cradell, Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch Area Coordinator for Lanada Bay South. Welcome back to the school kids. Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch welcomes back all of our students to a new school year. We encourage residents to review the Palos Verdes Estates Police Department Community Report, which provides traffic safety reminders now that school is in session. We also encourage parents to sit down with your children to educate them on the importance of bicycle safety, including wearing the right helmet, being familiar with and obeying traffic laws, and being courteous. Traffic safety is important to all of us in our community as we navigate tight and busy roads. Mail and package and check safety. Mail and package theft are still crimes we see appearing in our crime reports. Remember to mail letters in secure locations. Don't leave them in your unlocked mailbox, front door, or in a U.S. mailbox that has a big slot where things can be fished out. It is best to mail your post items in a post office or through U.S. mailbox that has a very thin slot that cannot be accessed by thieves. If you write checks, make sure that you're not using a ballpoint pen. Use a gel pen or a check writing pen. This will prevent your check, if stolen, from being washed and rewritten. If you receive packages at your home, you may want to reconsider getting a locking box or using an alternate drop-off, which is more secure. Get information from Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch. Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch has served our community for over 40 years. Volunteers who are interested in crime prevention make up our team of board members and block captains. If you want to know more about being involved or if you want to sign up for our newsletter, email us at pvenwboard@gmail.com. You can also find out more about us and our resources for crime, safety, and disaster preparedness on our website, pvenw.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheila?
Good evening. I'm Sheila Tischer, a realtor and 41-year resident of Monte Malaga, here to address an apparent injustice in how city staff executed Council Resolution R 2025 as it pertains to a fence and a grove of bay laurel trees at 2321 Via Acolones that were built on the side of 2321 closest to the side yard lot line for 2325 Via Acolones, owned by the Winstons, in direct contravention of City Council Resolution R 2025 Number 4 Neighborhood Compatibility Specification. That proposed development is designed and will be developed in a manner to the extent reasonably practical so that it does not unreasonably interfere with neighbors' existing views. And Council Resolution R 2025 Miscellaneous Application Section 3 Number 2, that all fences shall be located and maintained as shown on approved plan presented at the June 16, 2020 Planning Commission hearing. Note, those plans did not include a wood fence subsequently added at the upper edge of 2023-2021, which exceeds the height of Winston's 2325 Via Acolones pre-existing fence, and which drastically impairs Winston's Queen's Necklace view, and which does unreasonably interfere with a neighbor existing view and direct contravention of Council-approved Resolution Number R 2025, Neighborhood Compatibility Number 4. In addition, vegetation on the hillside closest to the Winston's Queen's Necklace views has been planted on the adjacent property with a grove of bay laurel trees with a potential height of 25 feet at maturity, and which is already higher than the limit provided in Council Resolution R 2024, Section 3, Number 20, which stated the vegetation shall be restricted to no higher than adjacent approved retaining wall fence elevations. Since there was no fence approved on the plans at the time of Council Resolution R 2024, no trees should be planted adjacent to the new fence at the top of 2321 that was not on the plans approved in the Council Resolution R 2024. And the highest planting should be restricted to no higher than adjacent approved retaining wall, which is much lower on the hillside and which already contains 2 added rows of vegetation. It's distressing to residents facing new construction to go through the time and effort to attend these hearings and follow all the rules, and then have the rug pulled out from under them with changes made after the fact and without hearings that would have been challenged had the neighbors been duly notified. I think it's critical that the council make clear to the staff that if something is not on the plans that potentially impacts neighbor views, that it simply cannot be approved over the counter in direct contravention of an existing council resolution that was very clear as to, quote, not unreasonably interfering with neighbors' existing views, closed quote.
Thank you.
The council needs to readdress this injustice.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Sean?
No, I got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Good evening, Council. So good to see you all back from the summer vacations and all energized to go after all these community important tasks that have to be addressed. I'm here to address the landscape maintenance and bring you up to date on certain issues that are occurring in the city. And if there's any questions on staff, I know you can get back through the channels of the Public Works Department. But we do, we're readily available to help and improve the landscape maintenance. There are areas that we're trying to get change orders addressed so that we can move on. We've deleted certain aspects of the contract under direction, verbal direction, and we're hoping to make progress on those, as are we in chemical applications too in the future. So if there's any questions, please direct them through your Public Works Director. I know there's a lot of changes going on in the city, and I'm here to help. Just need to be asked and direct me to help you in those areas so we can make the city even better than it is. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. That's all I have. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak on this segment? And my second rusty act for today was I should have said at the beginning of communications from the public that the council, because these things have not been agendized, is not able to act upon any of the items that were spoken about, but we can subsequently direct staff to review things. So if we're sitting here, that's not acting or responding, that's why. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We've got now 5 items on there. We have number 1, approval of warrants. Number 2, receive and file financial statements for the period ending June 30, 2024 and July 31, 2024. City Council meeting actions. There are a number of meetings that the meeting minutes are there for. Number 4, resolution number 24-46, authorizing the city manager to enter into the settlement agreement with Kroger Company to revert funds to the County of Los Angeles and to execute any documents necessary to implement the action. And then number 10, which we moved there, which is consideration of receiving a donation from the PALOS Verdes Estates Foundation for automated license plate recognition cameras to be installed with a monetary value estimated at, this is $466,000, big numbers, so $466,210, so that's a pretty detailed estimate. I think there's 33 cents in there, too. All right, any questions, comments from council on this before I open it up to public comment? No? Okay, I don't have any cards from anyone for public comment on these 5 items. Is there anybody that would like to speak on any of these? No? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to council. Do I have a motion to approve items 1 through 4 and number 10? All right, moved by Councilmember Kemps. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Roos. All in favor? Aye.
For the record, I'd like to recuse myself from item number 10.
Okay. All opposed? All right, motion carries. We're just moving along here tonight. Now for the serious stuff, we've got a public hearing.
And just to clarify for the record, you're recusing yourself because of your role with the foundation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, we've got introduction and first reading of ZTA-002-24. City Attorney, do you want to do whatever we need to do here? Or do we want to just turn it over for a staff report? I don't know how you like to handle your hearings. I will open the hearing after council questions.
Yes,
but-
that's fine.
Okay, then that's fine. Okay, so we have item number 5, introduction, first reading of a ZTA. Do we have a staff report, please?
Yes, we do. Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is the introduction and first reading of zoning text amendment 002-24, which is a zoning text amendment amending Chapter 18.36 Neighborhood Compatibility of Title 18 Zoning Regulations of the Palos Verdes Estates Municipal Code to clarify the definition of new structure for the purposes of neighborhood compatibility review. On February 27th of 2024, the City Council adopted resolution number R2411, initiating the zoning text amendment before you tonight. Basically, the Chapter 18.36, the neighborhood compatibility section of the municipal code, does not clearly define what constitutes a new structure in a residential zone for purposes of neighborhood compatibility. The proposed revision will clear up any misunderstanding by clearly defining what constitutes a new structure as part of neighborhood compatibility review, in addition to uniformly changing building to structure throughout the chapter. The final ordinance incorporates the city attorney's final review of this ordinance. Basically, new structure pertains to 50% or more or greater of the existing 50% or greater. A remodel is basically less than 50%. An easy example, you have a square. If 50% of the square is remodeled, or 50% or more is remodeled or altered, that's new construction. If it's less than 50%, it would be a remodel. At the June 18, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission voted to approve the zoning text amendment and recommended approval to the City Council. Staff is recommending that the City Council open the public hearing, receive input, and introduce ordinance number 764. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. I did want to note that there was a correction to the ordinance. If you just want to explain what that was, please, under objectives, or do you want me to?
I don't have the exact page, but there is a revised ordinance that is before the before the City Council, excuse me, in which one of the sections in which we initially eliminated building and put structure, it should not have been eliminated. I don't have it in front of me what this section of it was.
Yeah, it was section 18.36-030 on B, neighborhood character, just in their diligence trying to get rid of all the use of the word building to make it consistently structure. It was used as a verb, so it needed to stay as that. So other than that, everything's fine. I do have one question on this.
Sure.
While I don't think it precludes us from moving forward with this, one of the things in here, when they talk about, I believe it is is it exceptions or exemptions? Under exemptions, okay, I should have found the page. Dang it, I can't find it.
Are you talking about page 5 of ordinance, of the ordinance? The ordinance.
Well, let me tell you what the topic was. I don't know where it is. I thought maybe I saw it in the staff report. There's a, part of this code basically says that any change up to 2 feet in height of the ridge height can be, whether it's, whatever the structure is, I guess even a fence could have a ridge height, can be approved by the, I believe it is, the community development director. It doesn't have to go to the neighborhood compatibility process with planning commission. And it just strikes me that as many planning commission meetings I've seen where they argue, down to 6 inches, and we've just had a few residents talking about the increase in height of something like that. Has the Planning Commission ever talked about a desire to revisit the 2-foot exception? Because 2 feet's a lot.
You're talking about the minor modification process, which is done through staff review and staff approval. Lately, the Planning Commission has put conditions on projects in which is no minor modifications shall be granted. Any modifications to the plans will require Planning Commission approval. So they have looked at it, especially when it's a contentious project, and they have conditioned it accordingly. That would not allow staff to grant minor modifications.
So on a project-by-project basis, that happens, but not universally?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
So can you, and I think you covered in your comments, but if you could cover it again. So I'm trying to figure out kind of the problem that we're trying to solve here. So is it that if something was a remodel, so sometimes I guess people would say, oh, it's a remodel, and then they would redo 90% of the building. Say, no, that's not a remodel, that's, but if it's a remodel and it was less than 50% of the building, I mean, it's still subject to neighborhood compatibility, right? Or are you saying it's not, and that's what we're trying to catch here?
It still is subject to neighborhood compatibility. The issue is coming before the Planning Commission, in which they're seeing a project and it's classified as a remodel. Mm-hmm. Then you go out in the field and it technically can turn into new construction and residents, and then it puts staff in the position that they have to make the determination if the intent was what the Planning Commission approved. The issue comes in also at Planning Commission meetings is, I'm trying to think how to word it, is that residents are questioning if it's approved as a remodel, then they're watching the construction, then it turns that they feel it was a new construction. Maybe the house could have been lowered more, or maybe some more conditions could have been placed on the project. So this is preventing that out in the field, if it's approved as a remodel, and out in the field, it turns into new construction, they are going to have to go back to the Planning Commission as a neighborhood compatibility revision.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have any pieces of paper here, but is there any, Mr. Gilman, would you like to speak on this matter?
Yes, thank you. I don't have anything prepared, but I thought I'd share some wisdom. So I don't know if my involvement with the whole Via Landetta issue started this, if it had any input, any reason for making this an issue, but in that case, the applicant submitted plans for a remodel, and the before pictures didn't actually track what was really there before. And so they essentially, on the plans, implied that the before was different, was closer to the after. And so it made the scope of work look a lot smaller. And somehow that job got approved all the way through, and construction was ongoing. And the job was classified as a remodel, but for all intents and purposes, the entire house was demoed down to the studs, and they were adding square footage, they were blocking views, and somehow these guys got away with, or were able to bypass neighborhood compatibility because it was classified as a remodel instead of new construction. And that house was directly across from Parvin Jensen's house. So I think that may have had something to do with this. The one comment I'd like to make about this is I think it's a good thing that the city's doing. The 50% threshold, to my knowledge, what it does is it requires the homeowner to comply with the latest code. So they'll have to upgrade everything to Title 24. If they have a chimney, they'll have to get rid of the chimney because they don't allow that kind of thing. So obviously it would make the project more expensive. But if you're doing that and you're now considering it new construction, I think that should trigger an automatic reassessment. And I think the city needs to capture that. So I want to point that out because this is an opportunity to generate some more tax revenue, which of course the city needs. If you're doing more than 50% of your house and it's now considered new construction, that should trigger an assessment. I don't know what that process entails, but we should get our money's worth. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Cheryl, I believe that's what you said is part of this, right? If they come in as a remodel and it ends up being more than that, then you...
They would have to apply for neighborhood compatibility revision, but I also wanted to comment regarding Mr. Gilman's comments regarding Via Landetta. The issue with Via Landetta was that the plans were approved, and when they went and did the final construction, they drew the plans wrong. And when staff went out in the field and confirmed the plans, they were drawn wrong from what was originally approved.
Okay, thank you.
On the issue, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I ask her, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the issue of, reassessment or change in value, do we have input on that? Or is that a county determination?
That's the county assessors.
Okay. Anyone else from the public that wants to weigh in on this before I close the hearing? Whenever Trevor sits up, I'm like, oh, what did I forget? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the hearing and bring it back to council for any discussion and if there's no discussion, then a motion. Okay. In terms of a motion,
It's below the recommendation, right?
yeah, let's find it here.
Yeah.
I think you need to read the
If you want to
introduction,
move
right?
staff's recommendation, then I can read the title of the ordinance.
Okay, I move staff's recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Kemps.
And that would be the introduction of ordinance number 764, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palos Verdes Estates, California, amending Chapter 18.36, Neighborhood Compatibility of Title 18, Zoning Regulations of the Palos Verdes Estates Municipal Code to clarify the definition of a new structure and for purposes of neighborhood compatibility review and finding the same exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you. Could we please have a roll call vote?
Councilmember McGowan?
Yes.
Councilmember Rose?
Yeah.
Councilmember Kemps?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lozey?
Aye.
And Mayor Murdock?
Aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Old business. It's about a resolution to appropriate money for Geosyntec to do resistivity study number 2. Is there a staff report? Is that you, Steve? All right.
This proposal, usually my voice carries, didn't even think about it. This proposal is provided for additional work by Geosyntec for geophysical resistivity survey services of the groundwater for the area behind City Hall and Tejon Place and Via Corta and the parking garage. It was only up there for, in case there was any questions by the council later on. This was the previously prepared report that was presented to council back in July. Going back to what I was saying here, this work is similar to what was previously completed by Geosyntec for the area around Malaga Lane, Via Campesina, and Via Corta. That was done earlier this year. Along with the resistivity survey, Geosyntec proposes to conduct seep sampling, which is an analysis to confirm if the groundwater is fresh or brackish. In this proposal, they're also providing a recommendation for technical support services during the process once we receive the report and then applying to the board for any kind of permitting. With that, I'm here for any questions. We also have a representative, James Gonzalez, in the audience from Geosyntec, if there's any questions about the proposal.
Okay, actually, could we have James come up and just provide a brief synopsis, I guess that's redundant, of the findings from the first study and why we ended up here, just for the benefit of the public who may have read the report but would like to hear the condensed version?
Can you go to slide 6?
Or were you going to give a presentation, since we have all the slides here?
This one's fine.
Okay.
So the geophysical survey was to...
Could you use the microphone, sorry.
Sorry. So we conducted a geophysical survey to evaluate the ground, the geologic conditions at Via Campesina and Via Corta. So, I mean, probably everyone knows there's groundwater seeping through the foundations and different cracks in the ground, and there's a lot of issues there. So we conducted this survey to determine the subsurface conditions that may be the conduit for water. So what we found out is kind of summarized in this slide right here. So this is an illustration of the resistivity, a geophysical survey that we interpret. So this is on the left, this is going up Chico Path, going down Chico Path to the bridge at Via Chico. So what this represents the way the groundwater travels down the hill. So what we found is in the red, right in the middle, is a fault block. So if you know, the Palos Verdes Peninsula is heavily faulted. There's a lot of crazy geology here. That's why there's a peninsula here. We have landslides throughout the peninsula. So we have geology, there's map faults in the area. So we found evidence for a fault block coming straight from the intersection of Via Corta Campesina, probably extending further down right here. So this is a profile view of that block. So in the red is a block of a chunk of geology, a deeper geology that came up, and on the sides of it are water, or what we interpret as water. See on the blue, towards the middle of the screen, and towards the bottom of this, to the right is more water coming up. So what we determined is that this is the source of water, and it pools on top of the block, becomes higher, goes into the foundation, gets to a higher level, sits on the block, and then starts seeping into the foundations. So we made some other interpretations of this. So can you go to the slide 8, I believe? So this on the right is the same cross-section that we looked at. And the aerial photo is basically the block, the fault block that we interpret. So that's again coming from the intersection of Via Campesina and Via Chico towards this way. So with that said, what we needed this information for is to determine the engineering parameters to develop a solution to capture the water. It's a lot of water. So we needed precise depths, elevations, and now to determine, to put together our package, our design package, and determine the level of effort and the estimated costs. So we presented this in July, and we had some other recommendations, but what came out of this conversation was to do another geophysical investigation similar to this down here. So coming across, I forgot what this lane is called, and then
Corta.
Via Corta.
Tejon and Corta?
Yeah, Tejon Place and Corta. So a very similar cross-section to evaluate the geology down here, because there's basically the extent of the fault block and there's more seepage going on here. So this proposal that we provided is the cost for an additional geophysical investigation that we did, plus, as Steve said, seep sampling, and that's to measure the groundwater, to take samples at each of the seeps to determine the characteristic of water. So since we have evidence that it might be coming up, and there's evidence that it might be brackish water coming up, so high TDS, then that affects the engineering design for discharge. So if we capture water that's high in TDS or brackish, we might not be able to discharge that into Malaga Creek down further. So that's why we included the seep sampling. So, and then we included pretty much every seep that we knew of that we were provided by the city. So no one's left it out, and we have a good understanding. So it's a one-time sampling event to collect seep samples, basically water samples, and compare that to seawater signature, state water project signature, and then any other fingerprint of water that we can find. And again, that'll help design, that'll help us look at the source, or determine, evaluate the source. And then third, we were asked to provide some support for the city on any sort of funding issues or discharge issues or anything that came up with this project.
Thank you. I have two questions. So you're on Via Campesina, you went all the way down in the first study to Via Corta. Did you find much in, so if I compare the red line with the buildings along the red line that don't have seep triangles, I think those are triangles, did you find much there? And the reason I'm asking is, my understanding is your next study basically is perpendicular to that line and goes down farther, and so I'm just kind of wondering about scape. Are you testing areas that you just know there's nothing there? That's my question.
No, so that's Via Corta, right?
Yes.
The other one to the left. So the new transects would be, again, here from, like right around just outside the city hall right here, going across Via Corta into the shopping center. And so connecting the other line would be going up Via Corta, so connecting the left line down. So the reason why we can't just do one line is because you need two lines to interpret 3D. So your question is are we evaluating stuff that we think is not there, or we just know it's not there?
I just wondered if the second line needed to be as long. I mean, it's a minor point, but
yeah, we need some overlap, because if you go back to, I think it's 4, maybe slide 5. No, the next one, that one right here. So this is going on Via Campesina. So if you see the angle of the survey, there's a bevel, there's an angle at the end, and that has to do with the way the data is collected. So you have to extend it out to be able to get the data in the middle. So the length of it is kind of dealing with the overlap.
Kind of warps a little. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? David?
I've got one. Given the time of the year, we're into September, midway through September now, is the amount of water that seems to be continuing to come up through the sump pumps along Via Campesina, is long, in addition to along where it's coming up the manhole on heading into Redondo Beach, shouldn't that be subsiding by now, or is there so much water underneath and it's still flowing? I'm concerned about, are we over a bell curve, and are we going to start seeing some reductions? Or if we're going to get into a rainy season in a couple months, is this only going to get worse?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but right now we've seen, even since we've been on the project, a steady increase in flow. So if we're talking to Anastasia and Elaine, who were here before, and other data that we collected, it's been a steady increase since, for the last couple of years. We haven't had heavy rain in quite a while, and if I went out there and looked down Malaga Lane and along Chico, it's flowing a lot, more than when I saw in the beginning.
That's my point.
So it's hard to tell. I mean, again, the peninsula is so faulted, and then if we go forward one more slide to 5, this one, we see this water, a conduit, basically the fault moves like this, so there's a preferential pathway that comes up. So what's pushing the water, what's giving that pressure head to push the water up is we don't know. I think Mayor Murdoch asked before, we wanted to look at the water balance to figure out where the water's coming from. So we pulled that one back because that's almost an impossible question to answer. like, I know we don't want a study, but I'm sure some university want to figure out the water budget, where it's coming from, where it's going out. But to have this engineering solution, we don't need that. We know there's a lot of water. So to know how much water is coming and when it would decrease, decrease, subside, or, periodically, occur, is that we don't know. So the design, where the design would come in, is to have a conditioning measure